What's good, everybody? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson back at it again with another interview. Guys, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. And I'm here with one of the brothers that I refer to as Uncle Larry. He's also now a YouTuber, and he has a great channel called The American Brazilian. I'll let him introduce himself and what his channel is about. Go ahead, brother.
Hello, everyone, O'Shea fans. My name is Larry, and I guess the moniker is American Brazilian. At least the name of my channel. And basically, what it's a channel that I do with my wife, who's a Brazilian. I'm an American, and so basically, what we do is we've chronicled our life into little bits and pieces. Right now, we do a little bit of a segment that we call Baby Chronicles. In the beginning, we basically tell the story about how we met and it's morphed into Baby Chronicles. And as soon as we get out of that, we'll probably go into something that she wants to talk about in regards to having our child and just our journey. It's just I guess when you marry a foreigner, it's a lot of different dynamics that you have to deal with. Nothing that is like extremely uncomfortable, but it's just a few learning curves on both sides. So we discuss all of that. So it's just something that we started, we're having fun with, and we hope people just kind of give their input. And of course, if we can change, enhance, make something better, we're down for it.
All right, guys, and you make sure that you go and subscribe to the American Brazilian YouTube channel. I'll have the link in the first comment. And Unky, me and you have done a show before
Hmm.
on this channel, so it's the first time. And me and you both, you've been subscribing to me for some years now, but both of us kind of come underneath the kind of the Charles Tyler Bridge,
Exactly.
um, right? And so I got a chance to go to Brazil, and I know you are one of the brothers that's always have been, you're a very successful African American man, business owner, so you've been traveling a long time. What drew you to Brazil in the first place?
Well, I will say Charles Tyler, but let me back it up a little bit before I got to Charles Tyler. I used to do dignitary protection back in the day, and I used to travel with the dignitary that I was, protecting to different places, Africa, Europe, Canada, just different countries in the world. And so once that assignment was over, my mom suggested that, hey, you had fun, you enjoyed doing that. Well, why don't you just kind of go in a capacity where you don't necessarily have to work? And I thought it was a pretty good idea. And so I went and tried to figure out what countries always stuck out with me. I mean, I liked Africa, enjoyed Canada, Europe was okay. But South America, Latin America, just something about it. I mean, it always made me curious. It's a place that, I mean, I've gone to Mexico, but I've always been curious of places like Colombia, Brazil, places of that nature. So I began to do my YouTube research, and interestingly enough, I would hear a lot of good things about DR, about Costa Rica, Colombia, but Brazil always, it seemed like in every conversation, Brazil was there. And everybody would always say the same thing about Brazil, and that was simply before you go to Brazil, get your feet wet in either the DR, Colombia, Costa Rica, or another place. And I was like, well, I mean, I can afford it. Why not go to what is considered the pinnacle? And so I came across in the process of searching, like just like honing in on Brazil. I stumbled across Charles Tyler's channel, and I watched about 5 or 6 of his videos. It seemed like every day I wanted to learn more and more. The more I learned, the more I wanted to know. And he had mentioned that he had a group on Facebook. So I went on Facebook, I found the group, but I think it was private at the time. And so I sent him an inbox and I asked if, kind of gave him a brief description of who I was, and what I had kind of found out about Brazil. And I wanted to be a part of the group, possibly learn more and eventually visit the country. Make a long story short, I think I sent him an inbox, and about 5 minutes, maybe less than 5 minutes later, he responded. He was very personal, very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
He offered resources. I mean, I couldn't believe that I was actually talking to the guy who was on the video,
Mm-hmm.
and it started from there, man. And I was hooked.
So and I also know that you have been traveling there. It's been a big community of African American men going to, like there's Colombia, there's a DR, but I think like probably the biggest representation that's on Facebook, the Al Greases of the world, people like that. It's the Brazil, the African Americans going to Brazil. They're like the deepest guys I think out there right now. Um, let's go before we get into how you met your wife. Previously, I mean, I know you're from Jacksonville. Were you married before to an American or?
Yeah, I've actually been married a couple of times to
Okay, okay.
two different Americans. And the first lady that I married was my son's mom. We married, we got divorced, we married again, got divorced again. Tried to make it work both times, but for whatever reason, I think she got into corporate America, and of course, I don't know. It's just weird when women get into corporate. Some, not all, get into corporate
Mm-hmm.
America. There's a mindset that they get if you're not necessarily considered a corporate guy, which is ironic because I have a business degree, but that's neither here or there. Second
Mm-hmm.
time I got, well, technically the second or third time I got married was somebody that I met, and I had no idea, O'Shea, that she had, or it like, how can I, the easiest way I can put, well, you know what, I'm not going to speak euphemistically. She was crazy. She had, there was mental illness that ran in her family,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of saw it, but it was one of those things where I kind of glossed over it a little bit because it was with relatives and not necessarily with her. But when we got married, she began to manifest those things, and it was just kind of got weird, man. So I was like, you know what? The worst thing than being in a bad situation, for 1 year is 1 year and 1 day. So I wasn't gonna let that day come. So I got out of that situation, man, and I had been single for a few years after that.
Okay. So let me see. So you've been married, and then when you started going to Brazil and dating women in Brazil, because I know Uncle Larry. Because I actually tried to hook you, I tried to hook you with some females that I knew in Africa that I was looking for, and you was like, you had already, at the time, already been settled in Brazil. So, what was so different about, dating, obviously in the African American community or what you know in America, then dating, a woman from Brazil, whether it's in the States or are there? What was the difference?
I think within every man that I know in the Western culture of the people of my milieu, there are just certain things we hold true. Family values, uh, submission. I know that's a dirty word, but that's something that we feel like we want brought to the table. We want you to bring your submission. We want you to bring your cooperativeness to the table. And if it's not there, then we have an issue with that. Also, just peace. That there's a mentality in America called the boss beat. I'll say it that way. And the women that I've met in Brazil, they don't possess that mentality. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, especially as I began to communicate with who's now my wife, even with the person that I was dating, it was no brainer. I mean, it was just like it was totally different. Now you do have similarities with people who, even though they are in Brazil, they really bought into this Western culture and how women here in America do things. But by and large, most people they adhere to their family values and their traditions, and I think that's pretty dope. So that attracted me.
So let me ask you this because if you I'm pretty sure you watched Al Grease's Frustration, the first one, right?
Oh yeah, I've watched twice, two of them, one and two. I haven't watched three yet.
Okay, so for the guys that were being interviewed in Al Grease's Frustration, it was guys like yourself, um, guys sort of like me and you, right? But more guys like yourself who were, very talented African Americans, entrepreneurs, had traveled, had worked really hard. And then what Al Grease did, which was so masterful and frustrated, because it was like black men going to Brazil, he allowed the opposition onto the video, and there were African American women who were complaining about guys like yourself that had already dated in the community and didn't like what they saw, and they were going over there, and then their response was, well, these African American men that are going over there, those women only want you because you have money, because you have businesses, because you're very talented, and it's just really an exchange for money. It has nothing to do with the fact that they really love you. So of course, when you show up, they're going to be offering submission. When you show up, they're going to be offering this and that. So it's not necessarily it's not real. It's just that these women are in poverty, don't have anything. So here comes the rich African American guy that's the homeowner and all this stuff and things like that. What would you say to that?
Well, interestingly enough, what a lot of people don't realize is, I'm sorry, you hear my little boy in the background.
Yeah, I hear him.
Yeah, he just woke up. His mom is bathing him, so he ain't having it. But anyway, so I apologize everybody for that. But anyway, what a lot of people don't realize is this: most, not all, but most of the women in Brazil, they have no desire to leave their country, and so the talking points, which I think they are like feminist talking points, well, either they want you for your money or your green card, or you can't deal with an American woman because we're strong women, and you're a weak guy, you can't get stamp and all of this stuff. It's lunacy, it's nonsense. And again, if you talk to someone in Brazil, many of them will tell you just how much they love their country, just how much they love their culture. The food is good, the weather is great. Now, I don't want to make it, I don't want to, make anybody believe that they don't have issues in their country as we do. Yes, sure they do. I mean, they're people, they're going to have issues. But by and large, most of the people there, they love their country. They love what they have going on. And so for anybody who would think that, we're weak and the women are just kind of like, just trying to trick us to get us there, it's not true. It's, again, those are feminist talking points.
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you been to the other places like the DR, Colombia?
I've never been to the DR. I've never been to Colombia, but I have people that I know that are over there in the DR. And the thing that kind of got me, and our brother of mine, he visits Colombia too. They visit Colombia quite regularly. Now, I'm not a pay-for-play type guy. And again, as I said the last time we did a show, I don't knock anybody if that's your thing. But for me, DR largely is a representation of that whole pay-for-play type of atmosphere. And so I know that a part of that was attached to Brazil, but I mean, if you've been to Brazil, you do have that, but it's a very small. It's a very small segment. I mean, if you go to different parts of Brazil, a lot of people, they don't really ascribe to that. Again, but you do have that, but not everybody is about that.
Let me ask you this, because so you were going to Brazil, and did you have any like people that you were taking serious when you were there? Did you have a relationship with people that and why didn't that go into something else?
Well, I actually was dating a woman in Brazil. She was absolutely gorgeous. Nice person. But listen, at my age, where I am in life, it's like a plane. You don't want to run out of runway thinking that you still got these whole miles and miles and miles to go. So you're very meticulous about what it is that you want. And when it got time to really, to make the deal, so to speak, I kind of, looked into things and I realized that this would be something that would not be beneficial to me going forward. Again, great person. I'm still friends with her brother. He's a cool guy. Her daughter's, a cool woman. She's a cool woman. But I just think that long term, there would be something that it would not necessarily be in my best interest or hers. So I just kind of opted to dissolve that relationship. But she was, good person.
Okay, so let's talk about this, right? Because interesting enough, most of the guys I talk to that have married someone from Brazil or the DR, they've always did the K-1 visa and brought them over. But in your case, you met your wife, that's a Brazilian, actually in the United States, right? So that's the first time I've heard this. How did that happen?
Well, interestingly enough, after the relationship between me and my former girlfriend resolved months after, I had maintained friendship with a Brazilian couple that are here, older Brazilian couple, and very sweet people. And they would always introduce me to people. You know, they would always introduce me to couples, and it would always be under the guise of, you know, here's a good guy, these are good people. You know, if there's a barbecue or something going on, you know, maybe you got, you know, maybe we can all get together. Maybe you all can invite this guy. You know, he's a good guy. They're good. You know, stuff like that. Well, one day I was at a location. I was looking for some friends of mine, and they weren't there. And for whatever reason, I just stayed around a little bit longer. Well, in the process of me leaving, here's the Brazilian couple. Hey, Larry, my friend. Like, they don't really have a concept of personal space. They come right up on you, and it's all funny. But so they said, hey, I want you to meet someone. And when they introduced me to my now wife, I literally thought that she was with someone because it was like a little small group. And so I said, okay, well, you know, they're doing what they normally do. They're introducing me to couples. So, you know, we were all standing around just talking a little bit. And so my buddy, he was like, hey, Larry, you know, you should take her out and show her around. I was like, well, isn't she with, you know, he's like, no, 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 she's single. I said, really? I said, okay. So I asked her, I said, hey, you know, you're new to the city? And she was like, yeah, I'm new to the city. I've been here for a little bit. I said, well, why don't we get together and maybe I can take you out, show you around or whatever. She said, I would like that. So we exchanged numbers, and she put Talita, my wife's name is Talita. She put Talita Brazilian. And I said, is that your last name? She said, no, but I want you to know that I'm a Brazilian. I thought that was funny. So right then I knew she had a sense of humor. She had a firm handshake, but it was feminine. She made eye contact the entire time that we spoke. And she was very friendly. So after that meeting, I went to go take care of some other business. I had to do something for my shop. I had to do something for some my other business that I had to make sure that I put some orders in the mail. Well, in the process of doing those things, I got a text. Hi, Larry. This is Talita. Have you had lunch? And I was like, wow. Because in my mind, I was like, well, I'll call her maybe Monday or whatever, because I don't know how it's going to go. So I'll just kind of wait, give it a day. You know how you give it that proverbial day, and then after
Right.
that, you give a call or whatever. Well, anyway, she decided she wasn't doing proverbial anything. She wanted to get in contact with me that day. And so she asked me that I had lunch, and I was like, no, I haven't had lunch. Do you want to have lunch? And she was like, sure. I said, well, where are you? Would you like me to pick you up, or do you want me to meet you? She told me where she was, and the location that she was living at the time was kind of, that's a deep, very, very, very good area, and they had a lot of nice restaurants. So I said, well, I'll pick you up since we're going to a restaurant in that area, and then we can go from there. So I picked her up, and we went to a restaurant, and I tried something. I tried something. I wanted to see because she came across very feminine, very polite, very friendly. And I said, okay, I want to see if she's gonna do some Western woman stuff. And I took a chance. I was like, well, I could get Me Too, but I'm gonna just try it anyway. It was something simple. And so when we got to the restaurant, of course, we walked to the door. I opened the door for her, and there was a step. And so I grabbed her, not grabbed her, but I kind of touched the back of her arm and touched the small of her back, just to see how she would respond to that. Now, this is the response that I was looking for. If you want some feminist type stuff, typically when you do that to a woman, they'll turn around and look at you as to say, I'm fine. You don't have to do that. But she looked straight up forward, and she said, and smiled, and she said, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. Okay, well, I guess, okay, so this femininity thing, I don't know where I came up with that, but to me, that's a telltale sign. Anyway, so we sat down and we talked, and about a 45-minute lunch, I guess you could say, turned into a 3.5 hour powwow. And so we talked and we talked and we just laughed, and it was just so good. And literally, when I took her home, I called one of my homies, and I was like, yo, man, you will never guess who I had lunch with. And he said, who? I said, my wife. I was convinced, man. I know that sounds, listen, I'm kind of a risk taker, calculated, albeit a risk taker. So don't try that at home. But I knew it was. She was convincing. Now, obviously, I knew at that point, but then I wanted to give some time to make sure is that what I saw was the genuine article.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we talked, we communicated. A week or so went by, and I was like, listen. Yeah, I really like you. I want to. What do you think about me just seeing you exclusively and you seeing me exclusively? She said, well, I would really like that. She said, but first you have to do something. And I'm thinking to myself, let me adjust my glasses. I'm like, oh, what do I have to do? She said, you need to ask my parents' permission. I'm like, excuse me? She said, yes, if you're going to be my boyfriend, you need to ask my parents' permission because that's important to me. If you're willing to do that, then of course. And so I said, well, get them on WhatsApp. In the little Portuguese that I knew and the translator, I'm trying to sound out words, hoping I don't curse by mistake. And so her parents was like, well, since you honored us in this way and asking our permission, you have our blessing. And we will talk further when we see you. I'm thinking to myself, what does that mean? Well, apparently her parents were coming to America for 30 days. And they were gonna come. And so about another week or so went by. And let me take that back. The following week,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to her dad, and I asked her dad. I was like, kind of went through the same spiel because it was her mom and her sister that I spoke with earlier, and then I spoke with her dad, and her dad said, "Oh, okay, again, you've asked our permission, you honor us in this way, yes, And he said, if you ever get married, there's only two things that I ask: you treat my daughter with respect, and every year I want to see my daughter in her country." I was like, that's no problem. So when they were coming, I had this idea. I said, you know what? Why don't your parents come and stay here? Why don't you and your parents come and stay with me? And I have a decent sized home, so I was like, you can stay in a guest bedroom, and your parents can stay in a guest bedroom because it was on a fact finding mission. I wanted to see how she responded with her parents. I wanted to see if she was, like harsh to her parents, and I wanted to see. I just wanted to see what that family dynamic was, and man, it was respect. I mean, just super friendly. I fell in love with her parents, man. It just, I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's kind of like what I saw in a movie one time. They say when you mess up the Mexican cartel's money, they believe in consequences. They've heard about them. They've just never seen one, so they kill you. And so I believe women like that exist. I've heard about them, but to actually see one was something different. And let me say this: I realized after the fact why she was so traditional in getting her parents' permission. There's no divorce in their family, none. Not on her mom's side or her dad's side. Now, I'm not saying that divorce doesn't exist in the Brazilian family. Hopefully, nobody is crazy enough to believe that that's true. But in her grandmother, her parents, her grandmother, her great grandmother, divorce doesn't exist on her mom's or her dad's side. And to me, that was important. I wanted to know if the person that I got with, how they view family. And so it was, and you can hear now, I'm really convinced because we have a little one, right? So yeah, it blew me away, man. It was just, and let me say this too, Shay. All women in Brazil are not sex workers. My wife went to a private college. She had a college degree, and most of the women that I date were professional women. But she's a professional woman. She had her own little business when we met. But I didn't care what she did. What I cared about was how she treated me. I cared about the certain intangibles. I cared about her integrity. I cared about her character. I cared about her how she treated her parents, how she responded to her parents, how she treated people who couldn't do anything for her. Stuff like that, it meant something to me because my last relationship, not the sister in Brazil, but before I met my wife, she was a medical doctor, had her own practice. And we're still cool, but stuff that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care. I don't care if he was a millionaire. Just be a good person. That's what I was looking for because I bring my own stuff to the table. I bring the table to the table. So I don't need what they bring to the table, but there's a mission. I need your submission. I need your beauty. I need your cooperativeness. And she brought all of that to the table, man. So I'm happy, man.
Let me ask you this, because you did say that she reached out to you first
Yeah.
and made contact with you first. That doesn't sound like because usually you do have to wait in America. You get someone's phone number. If you call too quick, you make it looks like really thirsty, something like that. Were you shocked that you're actually kind of shocked that she contacted you so fast, right?
Well, I was a bit shocked, but if anybody has ever been involved with a Brazilian, they understand that if they like you, they don't really, there's no pause time for them. They don't really do the hesitation one day type thing. If they like you, they'll let you know that they like you. And what I didn't know was she knew about me 2 weeks before I knew about her, because my friends had
Okay.
they kept telling her, hey, we know a nice guy that we think would be good for you. You should meet him. And she was like, no, I really don't want to meet anybody. I'm fine. I really don't want to meet anybody. I'm okay. Just kind of like, I'm new. I want to kind of get my feet wet, so to speak, here in this city. I want to kind of figure out, the whole work environment, et cetera, et cetera. So she really wasn't stoked about meeting anybody. But when she saw me, you know, you know, you can withstand, you can withstand this pimping, Let me talk to
You stupid.
I messed with her about that. She just like, what do you mean? And so it's just kind of funny. But no, man, it was she did say that. She said when I saw you, she said you had a very good appearance. She said, but you look like you were a kind person. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll take that.
Let me ask you this: what about, because you said that after the first time it was very impressive? What were the other things before you decided to marry her that she did that made her stand out? In comparison to other women that showed you that she was a woman worth marrying.
Well, I remember a buddy of mine. I went over to his house to do some business, and we were talking about dating relationships. And his wife, who she's just so cool. She heard me kind of complaining a little bit about like the women of today here in this country, and she said, "Larry, you know what your problem is?" And I was like, "What?" She said, "You put too much emphasis and you pay too much attention on who you want, and not enough attention on who actually wants you." And so for the new relationship, or at least my wife, before she was my wife at that time, I watched her pattern. I watched how she went after me. And it wasn't like what I had or anything like that. She had her own stuff. She wasn't even on that at the time. Um, and I watched some of the stuff that she did, O'Shea. I mean, she she was, how can I say this? She called me in the morning. She made sure I ate lunch. She would, I mean, like, hey, let's get together, let's do some things. Hey, do you want me to pay? Do you? Yeah. I mean, it was just weirdness. I mean, I'm not saying American women don't pay, but for the most part, when you go somewhere, you're looked at as okay. And I mean, I never really had an issue with paying, but to have somebody consistently offer to pay and do things for me, it was something that I thought was noteworthy. And she was consistent. So it
Mhm.
kind of blew me away, man. And let me say
Okay.
this.
Okay. Okay.
And let me say this. And that might seem to be a little bit vague, but again, I'm like, for instance, I'll go back to the relationship I was in with the sister who was a doctor. I can appreciate your accomplishments without coveting your possessions. So I don't necessarily care what you have. I'm not trying to get what you have. I can appreciate it and then go on to the next. Um, so who, to have somebody who focus so much on the intangibles of your personality and who you are, as opposed to what you have, I thought was pretty cool. And even to this day, man, I mean, we just had an anniversary, and I asked my wife, I was like, well, what do you think about like Gucci and Louis Vuitton? And she just laughed, and I was like, well, what's funny? She said, I wear I get a bag from Walmart if it's something that I like. I like. She said, I don't need those type of things. I don't need those to be happy. I'm already happy, and it just blows me away, bro. Like it really does, man. I didn't know people like that existed.
Let me ask you this, because your family is an African American family, and obviously,
Hmm.
intercultural dating. Even though she's Afro Brazilian, obviously, Afro Brazilians typically, at least when I was in Brazil, I know there are some that are dark as us, obviously, but some of them can look a little bit more light complected. How did your family feel about, you marrying another culture? Well, what her intentions were. You're a very successful guy. What did they feel about her? You marrying her.
Well, we went to. It's funny that you should ask. I had no idea you were going to ask this question. But we went to Atlanta because I do business in Atlanta and I have family in Atlanta. Some of my family's in entertainment and some in politics. Well, anyway, this particular part of my family, the entertainment part, they were there. Well, both of them, they were there. We had, I don't know if it was a Thanksgiving or some kind of family celebration. Well, anyway, um, when she was, I mean, we walked in and everything, and everybody greeted us. And so it's like eight sisters at the table. My aunt and a couple of more aunts and some other cousins, they were at the table. They said, "Young lady, come here." And I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." And so they literally put her in front of a tribunal. And so when I heard them, I heard the first question. The question is, "Look, we don't know you, but we want to know what your intentions are with our nephew. And we want to know before you leave here if they're good or bad. And if we don't believe they're good, we're going to let you know." That's what I heard. And they say, "Okay, who are you?" And she began to articulate who she was and elocute things in such a great way. And man, after about 2 or 3 minutes, they looked at me and they said, "You can go." And I was like, "Cool, I don't want to be around here anyway," because I didn't want them pointing at me. But to make a long story short, they were, after that interaction, they were satisfied. Now, I will say there were a few who continued their reservations on until probably weeks prior to us getting married. But I think, just as with my relatives, many in Atlanta, the ones that are here who had their reservations after they've spoken with her and gotten around us and talked, they gave me that nod of support. So initially there was questions, yes, because the whole, what do they want? They're from a different culture. They might be after this. They might be after that. That was definitely in their minds, and I can understand that. Like I get that, but again, not everybody from different countries they have those types of ideas when it comes to marrying somebody here in America. So to answer your question, they were satisfied. It took a little bit for some, but for the most part, everybody was satisfied.
A lot of guys say that. I was talking to Andrew 26101,
Yeah,
and they,
Andrew.
yeah, and he was like, he was always making the case that he didn't want to bring a woman to America because, for fear that she might get feminized. Obviously, he does have he did bring his girlfriend anyway from the DR, and your lady was how long was she here in the USA before? Excuse me. How long was she here in the United States before you got with her?
A combined total of 5 years. She had been here, she had left, and then she had came back. So it was a combined total of about 5 years. But let me tell you, telltale sign,
Okay.
because in some cases, what Andrew said is correct. But what I noticed is many of the Brazilian, or any culture for that matter, and I never understood. I used to take offense to this, but I see why they do this. Many people who um, uh, aren't infiltrated by Western culture, Western way of thinking. I'll say it that way. Most of those people have the same thing in common, and that is they typically, the majority of people that they hang around are people of their own culture. So if you get a Brazilian woman or a Dominican woman, and the majority of her friends or people that she interacts with are Dominican women or Brazilian women, then it's going to be a little bit difficult. Not impossible, but it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to buy into a Western way of thinking because in their minds, they still love where they're from. They happen to be in a new place, excuse me, but they love where they're from and they don't want to let that go and they're not trying to. So I would always monitor if I know somebody who's a Dominican or Brazilian woman and all of your friends are American, I That now, that's just me. I kind of look. To me, that would have been a situation that I would have walked away from, and that's just being honest.
All right. Yeah, let me ask you this. For you know, because there are a lot of black men that are marrying out. It's a really big, and what you see is, for me, I'm seeing a lot of the upper middle class, talented African American men that can travel. Whether they're in the blue collar, or the entrepreneurs. Um, I'm seeing a lot of brothers, marrying. If it's not white women, it's definitely um, going towards this Latin American culture, where there's Dominican, Colombian, Black Colombian, or Afro Brazilian, or just Brazilian. Why do you think there's so many black men are choosing Brazilian women or Latin American women over African American women?
Oh,
I know it's a tough
Brazilian.
question, but
But no, 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 it's not. It ain't tough. Um, First of all, I would say aesthetics. That's one thing. Natural aesthetics.
okay,
Now, most of the brothers that I know, I talk from people from my ilk. Most of the people that I know, natural beauty is something that they really love. You know, but
okay,
then after you get past the aesthetics, you still have to deal with what's most important. What's that? Their mentality, how they think,
right,
how they do things. Submission. It's not a popular word, but it always is in the heart of a man to want somebody who's cooperative, submissive, who's beautiful, who's who has a form of independence, but not in a sense of I don't need you. It's more assertion. If you see something needs to be done, you're not too aggressive in a sense of doing it, but you're assertive. You can do it and still maintain your femininity. And for me, and the people that I know who's going in that direction, we all talk about it and we all say that those are the things that stick out with us the most. Interestingly enough, and I think I said this earlier, um, my good friend, he's like a brother to me. He just got engaged to my wife's cousin. Just got back from Sao Paulo, and it's the same thing, man. I mean, it's not like we're saying, okay, well, man, we're just gonna go over there and just snatch people up. No, you have conversations with people and you realize, wow, a lot of what I'm looking for, you possess. And whereas here, and I think Kevin, he talks about this a lot. Here, most women are taught you go to school, you get your independence, you get your career, and then when you are ready, quote unquote, you'll be able to get married. But things don't always work that way because a lot of times people get to that point, they're used to being in charge so much to when you get to that stage, or even the thought of allowing somebody else to come in and drive the car, so to speak, you're not having that. You don't. I mean, cooperativeness. You're not really cooperative. You don't really deal with the whole submission thing.
mm-hmm.
You say you want 100%, but in your mind you really want 50-50. And I say that because you want 100% of the bills to be paid, but then you want 50% of the control. And so it's not something that attracted to me. And I dealt with enough sisters here to know two things. Not everyone is like that, but many are because of how they've
Mm-hmm.
been raised. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care what you had. I didn't care if you had a PhD, if you had a bad, that stuff don't mean nothing to me. And I have my own stuff. I want you
Mm-hmm.
to be a good woman, and I want you to be feminine. I want you to be cooperative. I want you to be beautiful. I want you to have a degree of intelligence. I want you to have those things. And a lot of people in those countries, man, they have that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's natural beauty. So it's a win-win for me.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of I didn't see a lot of natural hair in Rio. I didn't see a whole lot of, at least from the Afro Brazilian lady. I didn't see a lot of weave there. Not that
Mm-mm.
I saw. Not that I can remember. I didn't see a lot of it. In fact, that's what I can remember the most. There was a lot of women with a lot of a lot of dark skinned women, a lot of beautiful women that just had their natural hair and it was looking real good. So yeah, you're right. I did see a lot of that. So tell people what they should expect on the American Brazilian YouTube channel. Should they subscribe over there?
Well, she just subscribed to my channel. You can definitely expect a channel that's very interactive. I want people to send in comments. I want you to ask questions. For people who may be curious. And of course, I'm no dating coach and or anything like that. Not even an intermediate. But if there's questions that I can answer for people who might say, you know what, I'm considering going to Brazil. Or I'm considering, dating outside of American culture. What should I look for? I can definitely point you to where I think is a good safe space. And also in the future, we're gonna be having my wife speaking. She's gonna be talking a little bit Portuguese. We're gonna be doing a little bit English. It's like they say, a little bit rock and roll, a little bit pop or whatever, however it goes. A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. So it's gonna be a little bit of both. And so we're really wanting to let people into our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The things that are challenging, I guess, intercontinental type relationship, and the things that are positive. So we don't want to give anybody any pipe dreams. We want to let you know the real. But by and large, don't be surprised if you don't see too many bad times. You see a whole lot of good positive stuff because that's what I'm experiencing, and it's something that I found to be awesome, and I want to share with anybody who wants it. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interactive channel. So I welcome all comments, I welcome all questions, and we'll definitely make sure that you're a part of what we got going on. And we look forward to that.
All right. Okay. Well, guys, we definitely thank you so much. Make sure that you check out the first comment pinned to the top, and uh you will see the link there. And I definitely appreciate Uncle Larry coming through and just blessing us with this time here. And I appreciate you. And guys, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. We'll be doing more interviews and things like this. So guys, always remember the buffoonery remains at an all-time high, and we are out.